on this computer. There we go. Welcome, Jackee Holder, to the Coach's Journey podcast. I'm so excited and delighted to have you here.
Oh, it's so good to be here. And I am super excited to be interviewed by you, Ruth, because I think you're just an extraordinary coach. And to just have this quality time with you today, I feel excited by all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like our paths cross quite often, don't they? But we don't
Do.
actually get that much chance to have a good chat.
Yeah. So now we do.
Brilliant. Well, I'm really looking forward to it and excited to see what we create.
Yeah.
So the The favorite Coach's Journey podcast question is, how did you first come to coaching or what you now know as coaching?
Yes. Oh, what a great question. I think we look back. I did a degree in government and politics in Birmingham. I literally did four A levels, and by the time I'd done my second round of A levels, I did need to decide to do something, and so I just picked my favorite A level subject, and I went off to um, university, did my government and politics degree, and came out of that and looked at the world and thought, oh God, Jackee, what do you want to be? So what happened was I got into youth and community work, and it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me because the world of youth and community work, it was so socially and politically aware. It was creative. It was also a very psychologically minded service that it just really spoke to my values and my beliefs as a young woman. And as part of my professional development as a full-time youth and community worker, we were given a non-managerial supervisor. And to me, that was the first origins of coaches here in the UK. I guess you could say that a lot of coaches originated from the world of consultancy and sports coaching, and then non-managerial supervisors were doing the work of today's modern coaches in the areas of mental health, social services, and well-being services. So I got given this non-managerial supervisor, and I was told that I would have 2 hours with her every month around my personal and professional development. Well, you can imagine my joy. I
Wow.
was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. And then I just remember walking into the room. She'd sat in this room. I had 2 hours with her. And I remember sitting facing her and her asking me some questions around my values and my purpose. And it was almost as in the space of a few minutes, the whole room dissolved around me. And all I remember was just being in conversation with her
Yeah.
about my inner and my outer world. It was almost it's still a moment that I get goosebumps about.
Wow.
And she just opened up my eyes. She opened up my world. She gave me a vehicle to express so much that I probably was holding back, being a teenager in South London, coming from a family, six children. I had big dreams and I had big visions, but to be able to articulate those in the way that I was able to do that through the quality of her presence. I
Yeah.
will never ever forget her presence. Her name was Rose. I don't think I ever got her surname, but
Really?
don't even remember her surname, but I remember her,
Yeah.
her presence, the quality of her listening, and how she made me feel. She made me feel that anything was possible. And I say that not lightly, because
Yeah.
I came from a background of childhood trauma. So there was a lot that I was kind of a lot of baggage that I was carrying that was getting in the way of a lot of my visions and my dreams. So the fact that she was able to create that psychologically safe space for me to begin to untangle some of that, she was definitely not a therapist. We weren't
No.
going by material, but it's almost like she gave me an opportunity to really make sense. and meaning of where I was going. And the long and short of it, Ruth, was that she coached me out of that job.
Really?
She coached me out of it because what happened was because I'd done a degree in youth and community work, I didn't have the professional qualification in youth and community work. So the pay differences between the qualified youth and community workers who had the professional diploma or were
Yeah.
teachers and those of us who just had like generic degrees was quite significant. And she was like, "What are you doing?"
Oh,
And I was like,
really?
"What am I doing?" What am I doing? So anyway, the long and short of it was I did get onto the professional diploma in youth and community work, which was a fantastic program. 2-year diploma, smashed it, did it, learned so much, got pregnant with my daughter, and I left. I decided that, I would go off to pastures green, even though it was a job that I really, really loved. And what I really appreciated about her was that she ignited my courage.
Yeah.
Most people would not have left that job. It had all the perks. It was a really interesting and an engaging and challenging and stretching job. But I didn't stay more than 2 years, I think, and I was off into the wide world. And then I went into the criminal justice system, and then that definitely didn't work for me. And then I kind of segued and I came back into working with young people in the leaving care system. And it's really from that I started being a non-managerial supervisor myself. I think
Okay.
that's my coaching really started to kick in. So non-managerial supervisors are not managers in the organization that you work in. They come from outside another organization. So you have that neutral space. And then I found that people were coming to me. There was something about me, the way I showed up, the kinds of ways in which I engaged with people, that people wanted to work with me in that individual basis. I didn't know that there was a thing called coaching. It
Yeah.
was only as we headed towards the late 80s and the early 90s that I met someone who became a great influence in my life. Her name was Iyanla Vanzant. She was uh, you could call her a motivational speaker. She's African American. She was from New York, and she was just an amazing, amazing motivational speaker. She wrote a book that transformed my life called Tapping the Power Within. And we booked her to come and speak here in the UK because her book was an underground success. It wasn't one
Okay.
that was on the bookshelves in, bookshops or, Waterstones and all of that. Her book grew word of mouth.
Yeah.
And so I was involved with a consortium of a group of us got together and we thought we're going to bring her over here to do a series of lectures and talks. And when she sent in her CV, on the top of it, she had life coach. And I was like, life coach? Oh my God, that's what I am. I'm a life coach. And that was really the kind of the beginnings of me owning being a coach,
Yeah.
having a name for what I was doing in the
Yeah.
way I was doing it. And it all began from there.
Wow. Oh, there's so much, Jackie, that I don't know where to start pulling. So when you first met Rose, what year was that then?
So I started that job. I finished university in 1984. I got the job in 1985, and that's when I met Rose. I'm
Okay.
telling my age now, by the way.
Well, I know, but it doesn't matter because age makes you fabulous and you look fabulous.
Yes.
So, okay, 1985. So it
Yeah.
is early doors, isn't it? In as
Early
far
door,
as coaching and stuff.
definitely. And you know what was interesting about Iyanla? We have to remember that I wasn't able, I was surrounded by a lot of Black women who were phenomenal.
Mm,
But Iyanla was the first Black female who owned the title of being a coach.
wow.
And that was really, really significant because, this whole thing about role modeling. You've got
Mm,
to see it to be it.
yeah. And she
See
was there and
her,
you could see her. Yeah.
she was there. She was there,
Right.
and she's still there.
And what's
She,
her name, Jackoo?
Iyanla, Iyanla,
Yeah.
Vanzant, Vanzant.
Yeah.
She's written about 12 books, all bestsellers.
Oh, I'm
She
gonna
was
look
the
her up.
coach for on Oprah's own channel.
Oh,
She,
really?
oh yeah, she's big. She's big. She's amazing.
So it's fascinating that back in the day when you discovered her, and maybe you could tell me how you discovered her,
Yeah.
because of course we forget you didn't just Google someone. Like I'm going to Google her and I'll be able to know everything about her within a few minutes.
I'll tell you how I met her.
Yeah, go on.
Iyanla wrote a book called Tapping the Power Within.
Okay.
I used to go religiously every Friday to a bookshop in Brixton, close to where I used to live. And the two owners of this bookshop absolutely became my best mates. And as soon as I'd walk in the shop, they'd say, Jackee, we've got this book for you. Jackee, we've got this one for you. And one day they handed me Tapping the Power Within. This is a book you need to read. I got home. I started reading the Tapping the Power Within. Honestly, I'm just even moved just talking about it now. And I started to cry. Iyanla's story from childhood, her childhood trauma and experience that she had mirrored my own. And she told the story, she put it in words, she put it in writing.
Yeah.
And I had this visceral reaction to, oh my God, this woman understands my lived experience.
Yeah.
The book is sort of a memoir and a workbook. So at the end of each chapter, there were all these questions that you had to journal. And of course, I was already into journaling. So
Okay.
the combination of the two just gave me this overarching embodied experience. So what happened was I read the book, and because I'm a absolute bookaholic, I bought about 20 copies and gave it out to all of my friends. I could not stop waxing lyrical about this book. And then one day I was at home and I thought, oh my God, there's a phone number in the back of the book. I thought, I'm going to phone her and I'm going to tell her how much I loved her book. And that was something that I've done throughout all of my life. Most books that have touched or changed my life, I have written to the authors and told them, thank you. This is what I appreciated about your work. I've done that from in my 30s. So anyway, I dial, the old phones, dial the number, phone rings. After about four rings, she picks the phone up.
So it was her number, not her publisher's
It was
number.
her number. She put her number in the back for anyone who wanted to contact her. So
Wow.
that's what I did. She picks up the phone and it's Iyanla on the end. And we end up having this amazing conversation. And she says to me, I want to come to the UK. And I said, you've got to come to the UK. And that's how I got to know Iyanla. I mean, I still know Iyanla. I don't really get to talk to her. She's big now. I mean, but we were friends, and she came to the UK. That's how she ended up coming to the UK. And she has done, years of really big scale open talks, lectures, retreats, workshops. I've been to the States and done workshops with her. I got invited to her second marriage. I was at her wedding ceremony. Yeah, it's just like she became
Amazing.
amazing a mentor to me. And certainly her books are what I call my book mentors.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't always know the person personally, but the books can have a significant impact on our lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's how I got to know Iyanla.
That's amazing. And I love that you picked up the phone and it was her.
Yeah.
But I also love what you've said that, if you're reading a book and it touches you, you let the author know.
Oh, yeah.
I think we can kind of think that our opinion's not going to matter to authors, or you kind of have them on a pedestal and, well, why would they want to hear from me? But I guess they're only human and they, in the same way that we would want to know that people value what we're doing, they're no different, are they?
They're no different. And because I worked for years with a company called The Right Thing. It's a black-owned company. They were based in South London, but they interviewed writers of color in the 1990s. So I got to be with the likes of Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, like just
Wow.
all the big name, right? I got to be on stages with them. I got to interview them. I interviewed the civil rights activist Angela Davis. I mean, I got to sit with them, have dinner with them, drive them places, pick them up from places. So I got to know that behind the book, behind the
It's a
words,
person.
behind the person,
Yeah.
and they need, they need to know that their work matters, that, it's impacting people. It's worth its weight in gold. And it's something that I still do to this very day. Even up to last week, I was sending a couple of authors little notes saying thank you for, their book, or appreciate. There's a new book out at the moment on trauma. I started following the author maybe about 6 months ago, and her book got published about 2 weeks ago. I've just forgotten the name of her book. But, no, Dr. Marielle, but is it Marielle? I'll find it and
Yeah, you can follow up and we'll make sure we put it in the show
yeah.
notes.
Um, her book on trauma, and when she got it published, I mean, it was just such a celebration. And it's gone to a New York Times bestseller, and she's on like just everyone's podcasts at the moment. But to see the journey that she has been on, and how she has really built her message and her story and her legacy. To me, that is exemplary. And she's also talking about a subject that's very, very, it's needed and it's very difficult. And
Mm,
that's why, like for me, where I am right now, I know that my work is as a resilience coach, a well-being coach, and a trauma-informed coach.
mm,
And that's why, I particularly resonate with her work and lots of other trauma-informed coaches who are really bringing some really important healing work into the coaching profession. And I think particularly where we are in terms of the collective consciousness right now, having come through the pandemic and all that that has stirred up on a global level,
mm.
across countries, across nations, across communities. This is such an important, integral piece of the work that we need to be doing.
Yeah.
Because I went into shock from the pandemic.
Yeah.
There are so many aftermaths that we haven't even begun to name and untangle, that the leaders, the managers, the face-to-face workers, the support workers, the frontline workers, the public services workers that they're faced with,
Mm,
that actually as a profession, we have never been more needed.
yeah.
I work on a coaching service for GPs. In January alone, I coached 35 people
Wow.
from that service. And obviously, the GPs are feeling the complexities and the challenge of
Yeah.
what their patients are bringing to them. Think
Yeah.
about it. Then they have themselves to deal with. What
And
did they
whatever the
process?
pandemic did for them.
Absolutely. So we're not even talking about what's in the wider system. And of course, the wider system is having a astronomically difficult impact on their health and well-being. The environments they're working in, the kinds of expectations and pressures that are faced on them are hitting them on every level.
Yeah.
So the work of trauma, the work of resilience, the work of well-being is integral to the work that I get to do with general practitioners from the service and other allied health professionals who are working in primary care, for example.
Yeah.
So I'm finding that I'm using so much journaling,
Yeah.
you know, journaling about their feelings, their emotions, what they're saying, what they're not saying. They're journaling to work through and unravel difficult relationships. They're journaling around their health and their well-being. They're journaling around their purpose and their legacy.
Yeah.
Do you know that like that's at the heart of it? I mean, I on one level, I consider it very holy work. And holy
Absolutely.
with an H
Yeah.
and with a W. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all of those things. I
It's
find it,
massive, isn't it?
yeah, I find it to be a sacred experience. I get to sit in front of another human being who trusts me to be open and vulnerable and brave and courageous and creative and resort. I get to do that
Yeah.
in the same way Rose did with me.
Yeah.
You know, that little vulnerable but dynamic teenager who had big dreams. She helped to nurture the seeds of those dreams. And that's what I've recognized, that I've been able through my work as a coach. I'm not over-identified with the term coach. I'll be
No.
honest.
Yeah.
I see
I
myself as a
understand.
human being who
Yeah.
gets to be on purpose.
A human being that gets to be on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like using the word coach. Everybody wants you to define yourself.
Yeah.
But for me, the qualification is that I get to be as human as I possibly can, bring in the best of myself as I possibly can to a given moment, sharing my gifts, my knowledge, my compassion, my understanding, my insight as a gift in the moment in a whole range of creative ways.
Yeah. And I can testify, from working with you that that is absolutely what you do. Whether that's one to one, whether it's, in the writing group that you and Fiona run,
Mm.
you do. And what that gives people and what it's given me is huge. And I think, the fact that you're then able to do that for frontline NHS workers is wonderful.
To be honest, Ruth, I feel like I get up in the mornings and I think you're really, really lucky and you're really, really blessed, because not only do I work on the GP service, but I work on a whole range of leadership programs. There's a whole sector that are in the financial services sectors. So we're working with leaders in those sectors, which, can feel very different sometimes to coming from the NHS.
Very different.
Yeah. So I get to sit with them and hold space with them. I also hold space with so many racially diverse leaders on leadership programs in the NHS and other leaders in the NHS. So I get this opportunity to be in space with such a diverse range of individuals. I just feel like, well, actually, if I think back to being a girl at primary school, at secondary school, just having a vision and a view of my life, Well, actually, I couldn't make this up in terms of the deep satisfaction that I get from being able to do this kind of work in the way that we all get to do it. I know you're a fantastic coach as well. And I don't take it lightly.
No,
I really don't.
but
I,
that's
I
why that's yeah, and that's why you can show up in the way that you do.
yeah, and that comes from, my life has not been by any means a walk in the park. It's been a glorious journey with a huge amount of amazing things that I have manifested and continue to manifest. I was away with someone in recently on a trip, and at the end of the trip, they said to me, "Oh, you talk to anyone, and anyone talks to you, and you get things. Things happen." And they sort of said it like, "Oh, who are you?" Do you know what I mean? And I was kind of laughing to myself because I have this ability to connect with people
Yeah,
in a way that feels really just very authentic and very real. I grew up on the shop floor of Marks and Spencer's. I worked in Marks and
oh,
Spencer's,
did you?
yeah, throughout the whole of my college years and the whole of my time at university. I worked at Marks and Spencer's, the biggest one in Marble Arch. And if you think about it, being on the shop floor, I was on men's cardigans. Yeah, I know about men's cardigans. I can tell you about a cashmere. I can tell you about a lamb's wool. But of course, you get to engage people, don't you? You get to know people. And it was just an amazing training to have
Yeah,
had that experience of working with customers from all walks of life and just know what it's like to make people feel good.
yeah.
When I could find that size 42 cashmere in Burgundy, let me tell you, it used to feel really, really good. And I would have customers come back in
To
just to be
see you, to be served by you. Yeah,
never lost that. I've
no.
never lost that.
And did that come from family or like being one of six siblings, or where do you think it came from?
That's a really good question. Um, yeah, that's a really good question. I would say it's a combination of my own DNA. So I was quite outspoken as a child in my family household. I think I definitely came in with an emotionality
Mm,
where my parents may have suppressed their emotionality, especially my mum, because my mum had a mental health breakdown in 1970. And I think that was definitely a result of just everything she didn't process.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So she definitely was not one to process her emotions. And I was the child that came in with that emotionality. So I could feel things and I could sense things. And I used to speak it out loud at the dining
yeah.
table. Like, why are you speaking to my brother like that? That's not nice. And of course, I'd be severely reprimanded for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this ability to sense energy and feel that when things weren't right. But also, we grew up. My mum worked in the hotel industry in Barbados before she came to the UK. And she
Okay.
was very well favored by the owners of the hotel that she worked in. So, my family, we grew up having dinner around the table every day, set with knife and forks, like it was like proper. And my mom taught us to eat really well and to be manageable. And we were the kind of kids that we would come out of the house on a Sunday dressed to the nines because we'd go to church. So
Yeah.
we kind of had all of that sort of like background. So it meant that the way I kind of carried myself through the world was we knew how to be manageable children, even though
Yeah.
we were boisterous. And I think it was a combination of the two, um, just gave me a sense of how I wanted to kind of navigate myself through the world. And it got me to a lot of places. Like when I was young, I was on TV, I was on radio. I would just write to television studios and they say to me, "Can you come in?" And I was on this show, this children's show, and like, "Can you come in and talk about the card that you sent us?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah." Dad would drop me up there. And then when I was about 16 or 17, I got invited on to Janet Street Porter. She used to do a program called the London Weekend Show. She had the 100th anniversary, and I did a whole day's filming talking about, what it's like to be a black young woman in London. And there were people that have filmed all day and they didn't get onto didn't make the cut. And I got onto the cut. And it was like, I wish I could find that
Oh
archive.
yeah, that would be
I
brilliant.
mean, it's lovely. I'm sure it's in the BBC archives
I bet
somewhere,
it's
but
on YouTube somewhere.
no, not on YouTube. But but that was a kind of spirit that I had. I would
Yeah.
say that I had a very, very big spirit. Um,
Mm,
so even, despite the trauma that I experienced, I had a zest for life,
yeah.
and I don't think I haven't lost that zest. I mean, I've gone through periods of depression. I had a really bad breakdown of a relationship in 2015, it was just horrible.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like I feel like I've risen from the phoenix from that. I don't even recognize, like, who was that woman over there? I was like, oh my God, we go through these things and they make us stronger.
Yeah. And that's a bit, it's almost like a bit of a cliche, isn't it? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But I guess cliches are there for a reason, aren't they? Because it's
Well,
true.
it's true. And I think, and we can throw out these statements as coaches. And for our clients, if I said that to a client who was in the middle of a very painful divorce, which I've had plenty of clients who have been there, and people outside of my coaching work, actually saying something like that's not really helpful. But I don't think I have it here. Oh, I want to share something that happened to me yesterday. I didn't even think I would share this on here, but it just makes sense. I was moving something in my office, and on the top of the cupboard was one of my journals. And it fell open, and it fell open to this page, which I'm going to show you here. See the pictures of the three trees?
Yeah. What's growing in your inner forest?
Yeah. And I looked at those three trees and I thought, first of all, did you draw that in your journal? I had no, very little memory that I had drawn that in my journal. And when I read the journal entry, I'd written it on the 27th of June, 2019. I was blown away because I could see the journey I had made from where I was back then,
Mm,
where I am now. And that's the bit that we need to engage our coaching clients with. That actually, that was a very difficult period, but sometimes we do not recognize the growth that is happening,
happening. Yeah, absolutely.
or we haven't gone back and acknowledged the growth that has happened. And when I looked at that image of, I'd written underneath, what's growing in your inner forest? And if I just kind of fast forward back to my trip, again, this little wise guru that I was with
Yeah.
said to me, "You've got a strong inner core." Just sitting there, we're just sitting talking. He said, "You've got a strong inner core." And I thought, yes, you're talking about my inner forest.
Yeah.
I know that my divorce enabled me to recognize how strong, brave, and courageous I was that I hadn't actually acknowledged, and how resilient I was. Not as a psych, I'm not talking about resilience that is just about kind of clenching your fists and just kind of, just being really like, strong. I'm talking about a very supple
Yeah.
strength that's fluid, that's like water, that can be vulnerable, that can be insightful, that can be not sure, but then can be completely resourceful. You know, it's that kind of resilience that I realize, oh my gosh, I have grown a really strong inner core
Yeah.
that I hadn't given myself the credit for. And I think a lot of the time in our work as coaches, what we are helping people to recognize is who they actually are.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
without a doubt.
no, you know, I'm reminding GPs all the time of their strengths, their skills, their values, things that they've already done, that they've forgotten that they've done, and they're not drawing on those strengths or those
Yeah.
skills.
Because they haven't got time to,
Right.
or, apart from the time they have with you, they don't have the time to process and reflect.
Yeah. And you know, a big part of my work, as you know, is around therapeutic writing, so journaling, expressive writing, reflective writing. And as we've stepped into 2024, one of the things that I realized my mission this year is to really share this message around journaling. And that is that journaling is actually a skill-based practice. And the reason a lot of people have this sort of yo-yo relationship with journaling is that they don't necessarily understand or have access to the tools and techniques that actually helps you activate this skills-based practice.
Yeah.
So what we do know about journaling is that for it to really be impactful and for it to be really effective, you've got to engage with it. You've got to go back. That's why I showed you my journal just now.
Yeah.
You see, that could stay in that journal and be nowhere in my consciousness
Mm.
unless I have the tool and the ability to reflect back and make sense of what you've gathered, you know, what you've explored, what has emerged in your journaling. And I think it's so related to coaching as well, because I'm currently completing a journal coaching program in the US. It's an online program, really, really good. And it's been run by the International Association of Journal Writers. I'm on their board, and this is the first time they're doing a journal coaching program. And so I know a lot of coaches might be interested because they're running another one later on this year.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's a really good course. And one of the things I was reading working through one of the lessons, and it in the PDF that I was reading, it said that journal coaching recognizes that coaching is not just a goal-orientated process, it's a growth process.
Yeah.
So recently I was coaching somebody who works, let's just say, in the engineering sector. And it was the end of their leadership program. They'd come on for their final coaching session. And so we started off the coaching, and all of a sudden, they said something to me around writing. And I said, I'm really curious about that. You know, just tell me more about writing. Turns out that they write fiction. And what they really want to do is write more fiction. So, of course, you know, me being a writer, I had to
You
explore
had to
that.
go there.
I had to go there. Halfway through the coaching conversation, they said to me, Jackee, I just feel like this is the best conversation I could have ever had. I don't know where the conversation came from. I don't know how we arrived at this place, but it's just where I want to be. And they said, I didn't think that I was going to come onto this call and had this kind of qualitative conversation.
Yeah.
To me, that is the example of a growth conversation.
That you didn't know it was going to happen, that you didn't even know that you needed
No,
it. Yeah.
Didn't know that it was going to happen, didn't know that you needed it. Now, just put that over journal writing, reflective writing, or expressive writing. What most of my clients experience is that once they start to write, they are amazed or surprised at what the writing surfaces
Yeah.
because it goes to the growth, not to the goal.
Yeah. And it's not necessary, it's not about answers necessarily.
Sometimes people get to answers, Ruth, but they're surprised at where they kind of start and where they have to go that leads them to the answer.
Mm,
And I think it was somebody the other day said, it was somebody was talking, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about sketching in your journal and your notebook and how, like, if you go out into nature or you go in out into the outside environment and you take 5 minutes and you decide you're going to do a sketch, first of all, you're getting really present. Secondly, you're getting really still. Thirdly, you're listening into the space that you're in. Fourthly, you're seeing, but you're really seeing. And then once you start sketching, it's almost like the sketching moves you into an embodied
mm,
experience. And what she said was, I don't need to become better at sketching. I need to become better because of the process of sketching.
yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's it, isn't it? And it's that difference between the doing part of our work as coaches, which is helping people get from A to B,
Mm,
which we have to do, to the being part of it, which
yeah.
is where I feel a lot of that growth work actually happens.
Yeah, that's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens, that lovely kind of the circle and the little circle inside. And that's where the magic happens that you often see, we sometimes share on leadership programs. I think that's my lived experience of sitting and holding space. Um, and a bit like what I learned on when I trained to be, I trained with psychosynthesis as a counselor therapist. We were introduced to something called bifocal vision. And
Okay.
I really like that concept that comes from Roberto Assagioli because it's the premise of it is that it doesn't matter what the client is presenting to you. No, doesn't matter how difficult their circumstances are. Beyond what they are presenting you is a creative, resourceful human being.
Yeah.
And that's what I hold every time I
Yeah.
show up on the screen of a Zoom or a Teams call, or I'm in the room with an individual that I might be coaching or a group. Doesn't matter how someone's presenting. I'm always looking for who are they at their core.
Yeah. And just being with them with that presence of our knowing that they have the power, that they have the creative answer.
Yes, yes. I don't have to do the work. I don't have to have those answers.
Mm,
You know, it in when I first started as a coach, I definitely got trapped in thinking that as a coach, I better come up with some pretty good answers,
yeah.
that would really impress the
Yeah.
client. I'm talking about many moons ago, but it was only until I did my postgraduate in executive coaching at Lancaster University
Oh,
that,
did you?
yeah, that's where I
I
did.
grew up in Lancaster.
Oh, that's where yeah,
No,
that's where I did my postgraduate coaching uh diploma. That was led by the brilliant Dr. Simon Weston.
Okay.
And Simon Weston, another amazing coach. You should definitely get him on the podcast. Do you know, stepping onto that program completely challenged my identity as a coach.
Yeah.
Simon did say to us, he said to us, most of you are here thinking you know who you are as a coach. But what this program is going to do is going to turn that on its head. And it's almost like we had to dismantle our identities as coaches,
Mm,
build and rebuild it. So I was completely stretched and
mm.
challenged around my
When
view of myself as a coach.
and when did you do that then?
So I did that in 2004 to 2006. I finished it in
Okay.
2006. I can remember because it was the year my dad passed.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a pivotal turning point for me.
So you'd probably been coaching in some forms for sort of 15, 20 years by
Oh
that
yeah,
point.
easy,
Yeah,
easy. I was definitely one of the first Black coaches here in the UK who was calling themselves a coach.
really.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Well, that's
Without a doubt.
interesting because I'd also written down when I was doing a bit of research that you were one of the first Black Britons to have a self-help book published. Is that
Yeah,
true?
that is correct. Sole purpose.
And when I did the maths, that was in the early 2000s,
That was in 1999.
99.
Yeah.
Like when you hear that statistic, you assume it's going to be like a lot earlier than that.
Yes. It was definitely, I think I share that with Caroline
Yeah,
Carolina Rewa's book, Open into Spirit. Now, did Shola come out? Shola's may have come out first, or we were very close together.
that's how I found it because there's a YouTube interview with you both,
Right. Yeah, yeah. Will we do an anniversary?
and it says that you were, and obviously it says the first Black Britons, but it it's Black women, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, without a doubt. But that was inspired by Iyanla,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know? And do you know, it's quite all right. You know, we talk about legacy.
Mm.
I've had two coaching clients recently who have come to me through my corporate work. So I did not know them. They've come on the call and they said to me, "Oh my God, I cannot believe you've been allocated my coach. I've got your book Soul Purpose by my bed." And I've gone, "What? That book's out of print."
Really?
Oh, it's out of print. It needs to come back into print. And I have to say, I only have to hold myself responsible for that because I
Okay.
could have brought it back into print because it's been out of print so long. I just have not given myself the time to write a new foreword and to update it. But honestly, that book, people still talk to me about soul purpose.
Wow.
I never understood why it went out of print. But
I'm
the
gonna get
fact
a
that it
copy.
still has a lasting impact,
Yeah, it
um,
means you need to get it back in print, Jackee.
but it also helps us recognize that, things don't always go the way that we imagine they will. But I'm really satisfied that that book, Soul Purpose, has done its job.
Yeah.
It's still impacting people. Do you know what I mean? Like we don't have to clamor and try and get it all. Do you know?
No,
Not everything's going to be a number one bestseller, but in my world, it's it's the equivalent of a bestseller because it's impacted people.
still today. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I think, this whole thing around we have to be very mindful. And I guess the question is around as coaches, what do we describe as success.
Yeah.
I know that.
And how do you think, especially sort of newer coaches who are still struggling,
Yes.
you know, and I guess it's knowing that having that attitude is going to be better, but actually moving into that attitude when perhaps you're still struggling to get clients in and make ends meet. Like what would your advice be around that?
So I'm hoping that for a lot of new coaches, making the transition into coaching is not them throwing out what they've done before, or, some way of having a steady income coming in that supports them building their
Yeah.
business. I think one of the challenges that we have in the coaching profession is that everyone thinks that to be a coach, you have to only do coaching. And I think we've got that wrong. I think that you can be a coach in a number of varying degrees of jobs and professions. You don't have to just give up everything else and go off and become a coach. I think you can do it alongside and in collaboration with other careers, other professions. And what I would encourage new coaches to do is to build their zone of excellence. There is nothing more attractive, it's irresistible when somebody works from their zone of excellence. So, for example, I worked on my friend's retreat this week, Jenny Garrett, who's an awesome coach.
Yeah, that looked great actually.
Yeah. It's brilliant. And somebody on the retreat said to me, "Oh my God, I thought that this session on nature, well, how could you make a session on nature and journaling interesting?" She said, "From the moment you started to speak, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is powerful. You were so passionate. The stories you told, I didn't want you to stop." That's because I'm working in my zone of excellence. Yeah, journal writing. I've studied for 30 odd years the research around journal writing out of my own curiosity and interest.
Mm,
When you hit upon the thing that you want to help people with,
yeah.
build it one workbook at a time, one coaching day at a time, one workshop or one webinar at a time, but just do that well
Yeah.
and build. And I think often what happens is we try to be so many things. And it's really about being able, and the reason I'm really amplifying the zone of excellence, because I don't think we realize that what we know about or what we're good at, somebody else doesn't know all of that
Yeah.
information, that data, that knowledge. I was scrolling my Instagram the other day and somebody put up a hack about how to clean the shower and the bathroom. And I just started laughing. I was thinking, I've been doing that for years. So you mean like there's all these other thousands of people that didn't know you could use clean your shower using the shower spray?
Yeah.
Like this person's got thousands and thousands of people like
Following them. Yeah.
but it's because they're sharing the information that they know about to all these other people that don't know about it.
Yeah. So it's like, don't assume that everybody has the knowledge that you have.
And not everybody will have access to everybody. I was talking to a young person one day. I think I might have been in a shop or something like that. And we were talking about podcasts, and he said, "Oh, would you recommend a podcast?" So I went to my phone and opened up my podcast, and he leaned over and he said, "Oh my God, how many podcasts do you actually listen to?" He was absolutely gobsmacked that I was interested in all these podcasts, because of course he didn't have that range. He would never have known that those podcasts existed.
Yeah.
So he would not have known how to tap into those podcasts. So you've got to think of yourself in your zone of excellence, is that not everybody is going to find you, but the people that need you will find you. So therefore, what is it that you have to offer them
Yeah.
that is really going to serve them?
So is that similar? Because I've read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and he talks about your zone of genius.
Yes, same.
And he says like stay out of your zone of excellence because that's the stuff you're good at.
Hmm.
But
Stay in your zone of genius.
your zone of genius is where you need to be to kind of create the life that you want.
Well, do you know what? This is a great example of what I mean. Gay's thought leadership
Mm,
has totally got it right. He's
yeah.
used the language. You see, I can do a lot of coaching work that I'm good at, but he's absolutely right. He's got the right terminology because that's his area, isn't it?
Mm,
That actually I could go one level up and
yeah.
call it the zone of genius.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll do. You're absolutely right. But he's modeling exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's his area of genius, and he has got the methodology, the thinking around it. That's his thought leadership,
Yeah.
and honed it exquisitely.
And he puts it into those words, doesn't
Yeah,
he?
absolutely. Beautiful example
And that
of
on
that.
my wall, I'm looking at them now. Um, about as your capacity for enjoyment expands, so does your financial abundance, the love you feel, and the creativity you express.
Oh my God. Well, I tell you what, it's amazing. Your finances increase, your creativity increases. 8 years on, no love. Well, really interesting right now. Having a great time. Do you know what
In the area of
I mean?
love. Amazing.
Absolutely loving it. And I just think to myself, this is what happens when we get into alignment.
Yeah.
And so, for those new coaches, another tip I would suggest is to really take care of you
Hmm.
and invest in you. The more you invest in you, the more will come to you. You know,
Yeah.
what kind of courses do you want to go off and do? I have invested, I've done some amazing work with some amazing teachers in the last 2 years. Hadn't realized just how deep I had gone in clearing some stuff. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, in comes this kind of new possibility romantically. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it's just delicious.
Because you've cleared some stuff that kind of gives you room to take it in.
Take it in, receive it, you
Mm,
know, even in the little bits that feel a bit like, oh, we're not sure what we're doing here. It's almost like there's this playfulness about me that's just kind of just staying with it. It just feels
yeah.
really fluid. It just feels lovely.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sign, and I think that really shows up and that shows up in our work. It shows up in to how we show up in front of our clients. I hear a lot of
Mm.
really difficult things every day,
Mm.
without a doubt. um but I feel like I'm like water, that I'm able to kind of swim through it and, make space for it not to kind of be sticky on me, but really hold that space with clients so that they can offload some of that.
Yeah.
We can't do that if we're not doing our work.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I think the more our profession grows and the more that we're really understanding what's coming into our field,
Mm,
that we have to really, really invest in ourselves. And I'm not just talking about coaching programs, I'm talking about our personal development and our spiritual development as coaches, because I think that's the bit that we sometimes miss on coaching programs. I think there are some really fantastic coaching programs out there that are brilliant at teaching the techniques and the methodologies of coaching. But there's a part that I feel that they miss, which is about the personal and the spiritual growth and development of the individual.
yeah,
And, if when I'm in my zone of genius, that's the space that I inhabit. When I'm in that writing space, that journaling space, that's how I do that piece of the work
yeah,
for coaches, for therapists, for those working in mental health, for those, working in health services, for those working in the creative arts. That's where I do my best work.
yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because one of the new hosts interviewed Julie Starr
Yeah.
recently,
Yeah.
and she said exactly the same thing. You've got to do your work.
Too.
You've got to feed yourself with learning.
Yes.
Um,
Never stops. The learning never stops.
no. And you can only take your clients as deep as you've been yourself.
And I really appreciate Julie's what Julie's said, because when we set up an ILM level 5 in coaching that I used to run for part of an organization that myself and Jenny Garrett worked at. Jenny was head of coaching and she commissioned me to write the ILM level 5 program. One of the books we always recommended at the top of our list was The Coaching Manual by Julie Starr.
Yeah,
And it's really interesting because it's a really comprehensive guide to coaching exercises, tools, and methodologies. But what really struck me was when I did meet Julie Starr eventually, and regardless of what someone has created, what really moves me is that person's presence.
yeah,
When I know I'm in front of another human being who has done that inner work, who's showing up as a human being, that to me is a sign that this person is authentically themselves.
yeah.
And that's what I got from her. I've only been in maybe a couple of spaces with her, but I can say that just from those little touch points, that, she's walking her talk.
Yeah,
So we need those tools. Don't get me wrong, we need them. They're going to come in helpful at some point with some client,
absolutely.
but it doesn't end there, and you can be really smart with all of those tools, but if you don't have the empathy, you don't have the compassion, you don't have that ability to sit with difficulty and actually the not knowing,
Yeah,
if you don't have that ability to do that, because if you don't know the not knowing in your own life where you've hit a crunch point, or something's just come that's just taking you out, like you've lost somebody, you're grieving somebody. I just saw Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO. He interviewed the rapper Buster Rhymes.
oh, did I?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Stephen's just like really going for it. And I just saw a clip come up on my YouTube, and it's obviously part of their conversation. I've listened to about half of it, and it's just got this headline where Busta Rhymes says, I was out of the music business for 10 years because of grief.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, there you go.
Yeah,
There you go. If we don't have the tools, if we don't have the resource, if we don't have the communities where we can do that healing work, we can be out of things for years. People wonder, where's that person gone?
Mm,
And that's the difference. I think we, you know, as coaches, we also need to have those spaces where we can do that work in a safe space, where it's psychologically safe, where we can let down some of our own masks. Because I think, you know, I think you know, there is a shadow to coaching, which
yeah.
is we can show up all shiny and like we've got it all together and that we know where we're going and we know what we're doing. You know, it's not, I wouldn't say that's very much my world. You know, my tribe tend to be very honest and very
Bit
open about,
messy.
yeah, 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 that's me. That's me.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
I think the more that we can do that, I think the stronger our profession gets. And
Mm,
I say that, and I say this with a lot of care and compassion because I think that some of our professional memberships actually hold that kind of you've got to be together,
yeah,
shiny sort of, I can't,
polished.
yes. It's, you know, I'm very much about ethics and standards and, you know, upholding the profession. But when I'm sometimes in some of those spaces, I do feel like sometimes there is a little bit of an elitism still
Mm,
there in coaching. You know, if you look at a lot of the backgrounds of, you know, coaches who are considered to be at the top of their game, we still have some of the old networks. We still sort of have people hailing from the red brick universities or coming through organizations who have held really senior posts.
yeah,
We still have a lot of that.
yeah. And that's considered um of more value and or you know, there is the perception that to be a good coach, you have to have been, you know, or especially to be a good executive coach, you have to have been, you know, a CEO yourself. And obviously that's not the case.
Well, I think we in the industry, there's a sort of underbelly where we still value the intellectual
Yeah, absolutely.
rigor that some people are very good at bringing to their work.
Mm,
Um, and I think what it does is it does stop us having some of the conversations that we really need to be having.
mm,
But you know, I say to myself, I think a lot of these things and I feel a lot of these things. And what I say to myself is, I ask myself the question, and now what would you like to do about this? Because when I look at some of the boards, they are still not really diverse,
no.
not really got people like you and I sitting on those boards. And then I say to myself, well, like, what do you want to do about it? Like, you know, maybe it's time for me to sit on one of those boards. But of course, my challenge is the work just seems to be a constant.
Yeah.
It really is about I think there's for me, there's a part of sitting down and working out, you know, what do I want the next 5 to 10 years to really look like and be like and just really have a little bit of a sense of direction
Mm,
and what it is I'm wanting to achieve. But there is part of me that I do feel like I'm getting ready, more ready to lead something.
sounds exciting.
Yeah, I do feel like now it would be, I feel like I would come at it very differently. There's no ego involved. It's a real desire to change something. You know, I've
Yeah,
been watching my friend Bernadine Evaristo. I think the Royal Academy of, is it Royal Academy of Arts? She's on one of the big um arts organizations, and there's a bit of a ruckus at the moment because she's really, as I think, as chair of the organization, she's really been provoking change.
brilliant.
There's this whole bastion of writers that look a particular way, that come from particular backgrounds, that have dominated in their membership. So what she's done is she's really, been shaking things up and trying to bring in, a more diverse pool of writers. And so
Yeah,
there's been a bit of rebellion, and I think that that's what we need.
yeah.
We need people who are willing to be what
Disrupt.
disruptors. We need disruptors. And one of our keynote speakers and one of our leadership programs in the NHS, Miriam Okundle, she says, we need to learn how to be good rebels in the system.
Yes, I am
I
a
want to be a good,
rebel.
yeah, yeah.
I definitely
I just don't
identify
think
as a
that,
rebel.
so yeah, I'm not sure what, but I think it will make itself known.
It'll present itself, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Without a
I
doubt.
think I was reading, I think the National Theatre has never had a female director, artistic director.
That's shocking. But I think it's at the National at the moment. I might be wrong, but I know King Lear is showing,
Yeah.
and I think is she the director or the producer is someone that I grew up with. So we all grew up in the same neighborhood. We all worked in similar places, and she went to school with my daughter. She
Oh,
is a
really?
oh yeah, Ola.
And she's a force.
She is. Absolutely. And she had parents who were conscious parents, who were able to give her experiences that were rooted in a very strong identity of who she was and where she came from, but it also exposed her to all of these opportunities. And when I look at her, at mid-30s, phenomenal,
Yeah.
phenomenal. And, we need to open up access to
Yeah,
that
and
diversity now.
yeah, and like you say, you had, let me get her name wrong, Iyanla
Yes.
as a role model. People need those role models, don't they? And they need to be
Yeah,
visible. And still,
definitely.
I work with female leaders, and they still think the way to be a leader is to be a white, middle-aged, middle-class man and all that that
Yeah.
embodies.
And, so much of the work that we do on our leadership programs is really around helping leaders create a narrative around what it means to be a leader, particularly for racially diverse leaders.
Mm,
And that authenticity comes through being your true self with more skill, by being able to know who you are, but be able to skillfully navigate how you show up without losing that sense of your identity.
yeah.
It's harder to keep, and it's harder to wear a mask.
Oh,
It's
yeah. It's
hard.
exhausting.
I think that is the word. It's exhausting. And I'll never forget, Iyanla she is a very funny speaker. And I remember in the early days, I had huge imposter syndrome because I thought I had to be like her.
Oh,
I'm
right.
not that
Okay.
kind of speaker. I'm not that kind of speaker.
No.
I do not like big stages in that way. Do you know, I go into performance mode rather than Jackee mode.
Yeah. And that's exhausting, I imagine.
That is exhausting. That is anxiety provoking.
Yeah.
That is you're not being your best.
Yeah.
That is underselling yourself. You're not bringing your best self to the table.
Yeah. It's not your zone of genius.
It's not my zone of genius. It really isn't.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much that I've got so many questions written down, Jackee. Um, so you talked about trauma informed coaching. How do you, I think you've said you have some psychotherapy background
Yeah,
training.
I did 3 years with psychosynthesis as a counselor.
Okay. So do you feel that trauma informed coaches need to have had that background in order to work with trauma?
It's really helpful.
Mm,
Don't have to do a 3 year course. Sorry, my course was it 3 years or 4 years? Can't even remember. 3 years, I think. You don't have to
mm,
have done a 3 year course, but you need to have done some work around trauma.
yeah,
Yeah. There are so many courses around in terms of CPD now.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really important to work.
I
Yeah,
just think
trauma.
it's always the way, isn't it? Because all coaching is still officially unregulated.
Well, we have to regulate ourselves though, don't
Well,
we?
yeah, we do. Absolutely.
I think it's really important, I, I know coaches that would say, hand on their heart, that they are not best suited to work with somebody who presents an
With
experience of trauma
trauma.
in a session because they don't know how to best respond to that. So therefore, if this is an area, if you can see that this is an area that's coming up more on your work, so I would say that for most of the coaches on the GP's coaching service, we all need to invest in more trauma informed.
Yeah.
See, we do, and sorry, let me just clarify that. When I say invest, not everyone's going to go off and do a 3 year course, but are you reading books around trauma?
Yeah.
Do are you reading articles? Are you leading to podcasts? You've got Gabor Mate, you've got
Yeah,
Professor
he's
Ranga.
amazing, isn't he?
You know what I mean? You've got so many trauma informed practitioners out there. You've got Brené Brown. There you've got Mesmer Mencken. Yeah, you've got so many. This is the work.
Yeah.
There's
And
no excuse not to be doing it.
yeah. And do you know what? Like, you were saying about your zone of genius and that you don't know, you kind of forget that all the stuff other people don't know. And to me, like reading the books, listening to the podcast, reading the articles, doing the research, that's that's not work. That's kind of who I am.
But I wonder if there's a reframe of that because I remember, I trained with the Coaching Supervision Academy as a coach supervisor back in 2011 or 12. And so every year we have to put in our CPD. I remember the first year I put mine in, they said to me, "Well, so sorry, Jackie, we've never had a list like the list that we've had from you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Because I do see that as my work.
Yeah.
It is our work. And actually, I think that's what distinguishes us in our work. So every podcast that I listen to is actually part of my work. But again, that's coming back to your new coaches. What I would say is the way that you can really amplify the work is when you listen to a podcast, have pen and paper next to you where you write things down.
Yeah.
What happens is a lot of us listen to podcasts and we think we've got all this knowledge,
But it's kind
but
of gone in and out.
we don't retain it.
Yeah.
We just know the name of the podcast that we've listened to. Oh, someone pipes up and they says, "Oh, trauma informed coach." Oh yeah, I know about that. I listened to that podcast over there. No, you
Mm,
don't.
yeah.
You don't know the podcast because you haven't mined the knowledge from it.
Mm,
You don't have a reference to it. It might be just one or two things that jump out at you from that podcast. It's a bit like today. You weren't on the early morning writing session this morning, but one of the things that I shared was that I'm going through this journal coaching program, as I said earlier. And on one of the lessons, it said, I'm not sure if I shared this already. It said around coaching is not about a goal orientated, it's growth orientated.
yeah. Yeah.
But I wrote that down
Yeah. So then it's
because
in, isn't it?
yes. And now I'm weaving it through. It's been talked about on the writing group. It's been talked about here on the podcast.
Yeah.
It will come into my one-to-one coaching sessions. It will go into a PowerPoint slide that I do.
Yeah.
It onto my Instagram feed. That's how you build your thought leadership. That's how you grow your zone of genius.
Yeah, that's so good.
You're threading things through.
Because I do struggle with that. That I think I take in so much information and then I'm not always good at kind of regurgitating it with a good language.
I would encourage you. So I have I'm not sure I put it, I've got a little book. That's my personal journal where I write my personal thoughts, feelings, everything most mornings. And then I always have another notebook like this, which is my oh my God, I've forgotten the name that I call it. Just jumped out of my head at the moment, but I'll come back to it. So I have another notebook where I write down anything that I've listened to. I
Yeah.
always because I do write a lot of articles. I
Yeah.
write a column for psychologies. When I don't reference it, it's a headache because I think, where did I see
Where
what
did I hear that? Yeah.
whose podcast was I listening? Who said that good thing about no no idea.
Yeah.
But the fact that I've got it referenced, I've got about 10 of these books that are full of fantastic quotes and references. So sometimes when I'm writing an article, I can visualize a book and I'll just go and pull it out and I think, oh, that quote on the value of going out into nature. Oh, there it is. And I'll just have it. And
Yeah.
just getting into a practice. Sorry, this is called a common purpose book. Um, Getting into that practice, I think it will serve you well. Also, we know from the evidence-based research is that when we write things down by hand, we
Yeah.
remember.
And
We know it.
it's so true. I even though, I do use the list app in my phone or the notes app or whatever, I
Yeah.
still have to write a shopping list by hand
Yes.
because it's like that process of sitting down and writing a shopping list
Mm,
enables me to do it better
yes.
like, than just
Yeah.
tapping it into my phone and it's like it doesn't connect my brain.
Yes. And I encourage all leaders, like one of the things everyone knows with me, that's the first thing I'm gonna bring into a leadership program. Have you got your notebook and are you writing things down? And I cannot tell you the number of leaders who speak of the difference that they have seen in how they are showing up, but also what other people say about them. because they now write notes and they keep notes and they reference things and they use their notebook in a way that really sharpens their thought leadership.
Yeah.
It changes how they are being perceived, how they communicate, how people experience them. You
Yeah.
know, if you given a talk and you have got three really solid points that you make, and other people have never heard these things, you're making an impact,
Yeah.
you're making a difference.
But you can't have those things if you've not written them down.
No, most of us have not got memories that remember everything,
No.
and we're in a distraction digital age. If I listen, I can listen to a podcast and think, oh my God, what that person said here, there in the podcast is really good. And then I'll listen to another podcast and I will have forgotten what that first podcast was.
Yeah.
I will have forgotten it. I'll say to myself, I'm going to remember it, but trust me, I will have forgotten it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really made me think actually, because even just the act of writing down the name of the podcast I've listened to and who was on it, or
Yes,
and also it will then enable me to quantify my CPD
yes, yeah,
because I'm saying to you, oh, I don't see that as work, but it absolutely is my
yeah.
CPD and my
What do we think?
growth, isn't it?
I'm working in one of the universities up north, running another leadership program, and there are a lot of academics on there. That's what academics are doing.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? All of that is the work that gets to that final piece.
yeah,
So I think it's a really, and I hope that will inspire people to see this as such an essential tool. And I'll say this, look at the work of Cal Newport and what he writes about in Deep Work. He describes this, it's this very practice that is at the heart of deep work.
okay,
And it's that difference between reading an article or going on a program that has depth to it. I
yeah,
think it comes from this place. When you don't really know a thing, you not kind of, it's not, it doesn't quite stand up.
yeah, yeah, that's really interesting for me. I'm now just picking your brains, Jackie, but I'm sure it will be useful for lots of other people.
Oh, yeah. Because I think that every coach has their zone of genius. So, this is really speaking to if you want to grow your business, this is a way to grow your business.
Yeah,
I've seen some coaches online. They're not coaches whose names are on the top of your lips, and they've created some amazing resources. They know their stuff. They're staying in their lane and they're doing what they know really, really well. And they're crafting beautiful work
yeah,
and they're reaching the right audiences with that work.
yeah,
We don't all have to be a Brené Brown.
no. I spoke to a client yesterday and she said, this isn't sustainable, you know, and she's a coach. This isn't sustainable. The marketing's just totally impossible. And so I asked her, what was bringing her joy? Well, coaching brings her joy. Well, how much coaching are you doing? Well, not a lot.
Mm.
Do more coaching and
Yeah,
see what happens.
yeah,
Stop doing the marketing and do the coaching.
yeah,
And that's the same thing, isn't it? Get
yeah,
in your zone of genius.
Yeah, definitely.
Stop thinking about what you should be posting on Instagram or LinkedIn, or just do the thing.
I think that's a really, yeah, I think that's a really valuable point. And I remember a conversation I had recently with someone. They were kind of saying to me, they didn't say it as directly, but they were saying things like, I think you need to think about your grammar and your punctuation, and I think you need to think about how you're crafting things and saying things on Instagram. And I let them speak, and I just thought, so the thing that I really don't want to be doing or don't need to be doing, that I do out of a little bit of joy that I get out of my day, you're now going to turn into a chore for
Yeah.
me. I don't think so. I don't think
Just
so.
because you want the spelling and the grammar correct.
I'm sorry. It's taken me years to realize that I may have some dyslexia, and just the way I process stuff. Actually, I feel really good that I get a post up.
Yeah.
So sorry. That's how it's
Well,
gonna stay for
and
now.
like how much could that person miss the point of your posts?
That's not the point of them, is it? It's
No.
not polished. It's not, it really is to be as real in the moment as I can be. And it's that kind of thing that takes us away from what we really want to be doing.
Yeah.
I want my Insta post to stay messy and scrappy and just like, this is where I was yesterday. And yeah, for now, that's good. That's more than good enough for me, actually.
Yeah. God, I very rarely even get on Instagram anymore.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I'm championing myself.
Yeah, absolutely. You should be
And now I'm
doing.
being given these shoulds. I'm thinking,
No,
don't think so.
no,
Don't think so. Don't think that's going to be helpful to me.
no.
But yeah, when I get someone else to do me Instagram, then, maybe we can have that conversation.
Well, yeah, but it wouldn't be your Instagram then, would it?
Oh, I know. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Hence why I'm still there.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're there. Okay, and actually talking about where you are, Jackie, let's do this now then. I've still got a couple of questions, but where can people find your work and what you do?
So in terms of social media, I'm on LinkedIn, and I am getting better. A lot of people follow me on in LinkedIn, but I don't engage with it in terms of posting as
Mm,
much. But definitely that's where you can find me, and a lot of people send me messages on LinkedIn. But the place on social media where I'm more present is on Instagram. So you get a bit of insight into what I'm up to in terms of my working week, the groups and the areas that I'm working in. You get a lot around my journaling and my writing. I share a lot around the Tuesday early morning writing online group that I co-host with Fiona Parashar. So you really find out what I'm up to on Instagram, and you get a bit more insight into the personal me as well on Instagram. And then you can go to my website if you need to purchase any of the products. I've got the writing maps on there. I've got the inner and outer nature card self discovery card deck.
I have these.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love them.
Fantastic. Um, and what was the other one I was going to say?
You're writing maps.
Yeah, I've got writing maps. I've got the inner and outer nature card discovery deck, and I've got lots of free resources on there actually.
There's loads of journaling
Yeah,
resources, isn't
yeah,
there?
there's lots of journaling resources on there. And then every month I write a monthly column, Right to Flourish in Psychology's magazine. So that's where I share a journaling tip every month. So that's a really good place to find me as well. And yeah, people seem to really appreciate that column. I can't believe it's almost 3 years now I've been
Yeah.
writing that. time really does fly.
Yeah, a friend of mine, I must have mentioned it. I must have mentioned you maybe because of the group or because of doing this interview. And she went, "Oh my God, I love her column in psychology."
Hmm. It's lovely. And yeah, people do write in. I've had a few mentions in the letter pages. It's just nice. I tell you what, it's nice to know that something that I put out every month, people look forward to. And it's making a difference. And people have told me that they try out the prompts. And I think one month, I think I might have been away and then they didn't have me in the page and people wrote in and said, "Where's Jackee?"
Oh, how
So
lovely.
yeah.
The ripples, your journaling ripples are off.
Yeah.
Um, so also just going back to your website. So Robbie texted me last night. He went, when you speak to Jackee, please will you ask her about the picture on her website?
Which one?
I think he must mean the one of
Right.
you, like you write up a tree. You look like you're touching this like amazing tree,
Yeah.
and you're in a lovely like beige color dress
Yeah.
or play suit. Where was
Yes.
that?
So when I first got commissioned to do the column for psychologies, they sent me an email and said, "Oh, Jackee, we're going to do a photo shoot with you because we need photos for the column." And so this fantastic photographer, absolutely recommend her, Laura Richardson, contacted me. She does all of the photographs. And she said to me, "Jackee, where do you love to walk that we could take photos?" And I said to her, "Battersea Park," because that's where I always used to race and run around Battersea Park. We spent literally a day wandering around Battersea Park, finding all these little hidden spots. So the one where it depends which one it is. The one where I'm leaning back against a tree, that is a hidden away plane tree in on
Are you
the
leaning?
edges of Battersea Park. And then am I leaning against the tree?
No, you like you've got your hand on it and you're kind of looking up at
Yeah.
it.
That's the one where I am. That's a tree that's more in the center of a park, but it's got this amazing branch that is really low, which is why I think my hand is on it. And it just gives me a sense of, oh my God, anything is possible. It's so strong, so robust. It just symbolizes so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an amazing tree, and it's very, very low. Battersea Park has got a lot of trees in that park that have got branches that are so low lying you can sit on them really, really comfortably.
It's
So they're
amazing
just
that it's in Battersea
to get you
Park.
to. Oh yeah,
Because I
Battersea
looked
Park.
at it and I thought, oh, that looks like it's like somewhere abroad, like Thailand, or I don't know
Every,
why I
every,
thought that.
every single tree is in Battersea Park,
I love
and
it.
that demystifies nature in the city.
Yeah.
If you thought that tree was in Thailand, that tree's in Battersea Park in London, and London has 8 million trees.
Yeah, you
And
really opened my eyes to that. Um,
and I have to tell you, I've just come back from Berlin for a weekend.
oh, have you? I love Berlin.
Really, but the trees in Berlin do not compare to the trees in
No. But of course,
London.
Berlin had a lot more bomb damage, I think, didn't it?
It's got very young trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of mature trees.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't remember where I was. I was near the V&A and we ended up I think we got a bit lost. And I just turned into the street and there was like this huge tropical garden.
Oh wow.
And
In
I've
Berlin,
taken no, this is in London. And I've taken a picture of
a
it. It
tropical
was,
garden.
yeah, near the V&A. Or that's what it looked like.
Hold on. Is it a big I know, but hold on. Is it a big um what's the palm tree?
Yeah, I think so. But there's loads of them. And it's like, I took a picture of it for you and then I never sent it to you.
And is it around lots of those mansion blocks?
Yeah.
It's behind, it's at the back of Harrods. I know exactly where you're talking about.
Do
Because, of
you?
course, I used to walk those streets, run those streets every Sunday.
Yeah.
I think I know the one. You must send me the phone.
I will. I'm going to find it and send it to you because it was last May I took it and I thought I'm going to send that to Jackee because as soon as I saw it, it made me think of you because you made me kind of realize how green London is. And then because of that, like I just spend a lot of time looking at trees wherever I go now.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely. And that's the thing about what I love about London is you will be constantly surprised at the lushness of the city and nature.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful. It's part of why I'm still here.
I was going to say, are you still there?
I'm still in London. I'm on the edges, but East Croydon is the centre of the universe as far as I'm concerned. I'm in
Yeah,
Victoria in 15 minutes. I
brilliant.
get off at Clapham Junction and I walk over the river to Chelsea. I'm happy as a
Perfect.
bunny. I couldn't be happier.
And have you got the big weeping willow in your garden?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing. She's bare at the moment
yeah. I love
because
that when
all the leaves have gone. And it's
removed. And I
yeah,
saw that. It's like, that's just the perfect garden for you, isn't
I
it?
know. I couldn't walk away from this house because of that tree.
No.
It was just impossible. I probably paid over the odds for it, but it was like the tree,
The tree
because
spoke to you.
some gardens you walk into, there's no personality or no character. But it's yeah, you couldn't make it up really. How could the tree lover be shown a house with a weeping willow in the back garden and walk away?
Yeah, amazing.
I'd still be dreaming about that tree.
Yeah, you'd always wonder what if, wouldn't you?
Yeah, she's gorgeous.
Well, I'm really conscious of your time, Jackee, and I'm also conscious I could quite happily sit here and chat all day, but I know you've got a busy day.
Yeah. It's been wonderful speaking to you. We've covered so much ground.
We have. I feel like there's loads I haven't asked you, but I don't know if there's anything like you want to quickly say before we finish up.
Do you know, the only thing I was thinking about was I was quite intrigued by the question around the coaching book.
Ah, right. Okay.
And I thought, oh, I can't recommend a coaching book because I've always read outside of our profession.
Mm,
That has impacted so much of how I am as a coach and what I bring into the coaching. So, when we were running the ILM level 5, I when I wrote the program, I read so many of the coaching books, and so many struck me. Down from Julie Stars to the heart. What was the heart and the backbone one? The backbone of coaching.
oh, I don't know.
That was another one. I can't remember her name. That comes to me, and Miles Downey's coaching book. There were just so many that I thought had some really good things in there. But I thought um there's some books that I pulled off my shelf, and I thought, you know what, if I was in Desert Island, I would have these books with me. I'm not sure if you can see them all, but this one is called One Continuous Mistake, and it's around four noble truths for writers. I think you learn so much about yourself and life
Oh,
through these.
wow. That looks
I
amazing.
I love the feel of this book. And it's funny, when I pull the books off the shelf, every single one of these pages in this book is dog-eared. So I
Yeah.
know that's a book that I just, I love.
Yeah.
And the same with this book, again, dog-eared almost every other page, Writing as a Way of Healing by
Mm,
Louisa de Salvo.
okay.
Writing as a Way of Healing, Louise de Salvo. Beautiful book. Sadly deceased recently.
Lisa DeSalvo.
Louise.
Louise.
Yeah, Louise. and Disalvo, Desalvo.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Then Remembered Rapture by
Oh,
Bell.
bell hooks.
Beautiful, excellent book on writing. I like the intersectionality of it. And again, every page dog-eared.
Dog-eared. Brilliant.
So I thought, oh God, you're not badly, Jackie. Then there's Poem Crazy by Susan Goldsmith Woolridge. Every other page dog-eared.
I think you must have shown that at
Yes,
writing group
I
the other
have.
week because yeah.
And these are just random because I've got books in about 5 rooms of the house. And then the other one that I thought, and again, dog-eared, every page is, I never forget when I read this, David White,
Oh,
The Unknown Seas.
these are brilliant. I love books that I've never heard of.
Yeah,
Crossing the Unknown Sea. Yeah, and I have to say, it is really nice to just read books around the work that we do, like you say, not just books specifically on coaching.
yeah, definitely. I think we could, as a profession, we could definitely benefit from having a much wider range of how we bring our knowledge in,
Yeah,
because you learn so much across different disciplines.
yeah,
I'm a real encourager of cross fertilization of our learning and our reading.
yeah,
Definitely, that's one of my key things. I like to cross fertilize.
yeah, absolutely. And that creates space and more creativity.
Yeah,
And
it really does.
I've just realized a lovely note for us to end on is this, because when I did the writing retreat with you, we had to go out and get a leaf.
Oh yeah.
And I went out and saw this huge, gigantic.
Wow. Is it from an aloe plant or is it something else?
I don't know. It's like in the neighbour's garden. It kind of looks
Has it
like a
got yellow around the edges or not?
no, but it's pretty dry.
I wonder if it's from an aloe plant.
I'll take a picture of the plant for you
Yeah,
and send it to you.
yeah. Wow.
But I picked it up because I saw it and thought it's too big. You can't take that on a Zoom call. So I thought, well, I'm going to take it and I'm going to take up the space that I
Yeah,
didn't want to take up.
yeah.
And it's just stayed in my office ever since to remind me not to make myself small.
What a fantastic metaphor to end on. You
Yeah,
thought it was too big, and then you reminded yourself to take up space.
yeah,
That's what I love about using all those metaphors that in nature
yeah,
as a way to see ourselves. Nature really does hold up a mirror, doesn't it?
yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I wrote my column this month on, going outside and drawing from the metaphors of nature.
Yeah,
And yeah, maybe if you give me permission, I can add that. I could send a little note to my editor.
absolutely.
That's a lovely example of how a metaphor from nature held up the mirror for you.
Yeah, and keeps doing
Lovely.
so because I won't get rid of it. It's getting a bit scratty and a bit dry, but I need it there to remind me.
Yeah, you need it there. And I love the way you moved it through the screen and you were just like really there with it. It
Yeah,
really, that's how we as women in particular need to take up space.
yeah,
And I guess that's what I'm leaving with. I'm just unapologetic now around owning my space. Not, for me, I feel like it is owning my space. So there's enough space for all of us. It's
absolutely.
like really owning the space that is yours. So thank you for that beautiful lesson that you've ended us on, Ruth.
Well, it all came from your wonderful writing retreat, which I
Love.
will also link to the group in the show notes for everybody who might be interested in joining.
Yes.
But thank you so much, Jackee. I've had
Thank
such a wonderful time, and I think everybody who listens will want to know more about so much of what we talked about. So maybe one day we'll do a round two.
Yeah, lovely. I look forward to it. Thanks so much for having me on, and thanks for such a nourishing conversation this morning.
It's been wonderful, Jackee. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.